from a personal player's perspective, you'll understand that, how you want to be ambitious at the end of the day.
Yes.
But now with this report coming out that he hasn't turned up for training, it's led to people now speculating over his professionalism. Daniel Granger's been in touch. Thank you for your tweet, Daniel. You say, hi, well, with regards to Kane, like many footballers, they have got to learn they cannot have everything. You don't sign long contracts if you think you may move in the future. You make decisions, you learn to live with them. He says, sorry, but if he downs tools, then you should strip the England captaincy off him.
Strong.
That is strong from Daniel. What I will say to that is that sometimes you sign a contract for the benefit of the club to strengthen the club's position when it comes to selling a player, because they know obviously if you tie a player down for a longer deal, you're going to get more money potentially out of a transfer. And also, let's not forget that clubs quite happily get rid of you even if you have signed a long-term contract. So it works both ways, but certainly there is also that side of the conversation of, well, look, you've signed a deal.
I get that. I totally get that point. Absolutely. If you're willing to sign, whether it is because you want a bit more money and want to be maybe on a comparison with players from other clubs, then you're happy to sign that new deal that bumps your money up to a level where other strikers in the same league or around the world, you're compared in terms of pay to them, and the club think, well, brilliant, because we want to tie you down and it puts us in a stronger position. Well, if you're going to sign that contract, you've got to accept that you might have to see that contract out when you sign it. And you should still abide by the contract. So if you're expected to turn up at training today, you should be turning up at training today. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it has got to this point, then I'm not too sure there's much of a gentleman's agreement still in place. I wouldn't have thought.
Is there such a thing in football, Dean? Agreement?
I don't think so, no. I'm not too sure what a handshake means particularly anymore in football, because you're right. The players, loyalties come into question all the time, but it's the same with the clubs. When they don't want you, you're an asset, ultimately. You're a sellable asset that's worth X amount to them, and at the end of the day, it's not like you're a person. You're an asset to them. So when it works for them in terms of business to maybe get rid of you or to relieve you of your duty, well, they do that because they do it in the interests of the business, and you're an asset to that business. They don't worry about whether it's harmful to you or how you feel about it. That's how it works, and I think players are certainly aware of that. Well, Terry, thank you for your tweet. You say, I always expected this could happen. I don't expect to see Kane in a Spurs shirt until after the transfer window, if at all. So, Terry, it sounds as though you might be settling for the fact that Kane may well leave then this summer. But this is the ultimate player power, isn't it? If you are, and again, we stress, it's an if. I keep saying it, an if, but people aren't listening to the if. But if he hasn't turned up for training, how far can you then push it as a player trying to move away? Well, I haven't been there myself where I've tried to push it, but I think we've seen it over the years when you don't turn up, you then fall out with maybe the manager, you put with the 23s, it gets very, very ugly very quickly when you sort of go down that route. But maybe he feels as if, well, look, I've stayed for a long period of time, you promised me X, Y and Z, it's not happened. The recruitment hasn't been good enough for what you promised me as a player, as your top striker. I've given everything I can for this club. It's not ended up how I wanted in terms of trophies. From my perspective, I want to move on. And so eventually it comes down to, like I said, it's sad. It eventually comes down to the player to either kick up a fuss or to just carry on and then hope that the club agrees. But if the club don't want to sell you, then eventually, as a player, do you make that decision to upset things, to make it happen or try and make it happen? And the thing is, someone like Harry Kane, if that move doesn't happen, he's still going to be wanted by Tottenham. So he'll be integrated, I'm sure, pretty easily back into the Tottenham side. And I'm sure the players themselves would obviously welcome him back because they know how important he is to the team. But if he does move on very quickly, who comes in to replace him? Nuno Espirito Santo may well have already known that this might be happening, but who does he go for? But I think with that, at what point does Tottenham's supporters go, do you know what? Just go. We've had enough. Yeah, just if that's the way it's going to be, just go. You've been great. It's not worked in terms of trophies, but you've done unbelievably well as a player. The records you've got for this club, the way you've represented us, we don't want this to now go the way that it might.
Mm-hmm.
Just go. You know, then at what point do the Tottenham fans get to that point? But also, Nuno's probably thinking, well, hang on, I need to know. I need to know what's going on. Am I going to have Harry Kane for the season? Am I not? If I'm not, who am I going to look at? He'll have his own ideas. Maybe Tottenham fans think, well, how are you going to replace Harry Kane? Well, you don't. You don't replace a player like Harry. It doesn't just work like that unless you're then going to go and try and spend the same again. But Nuno might want something different. Mm-hmm. He might want, whether he wants, I mean, if you look at who he had at Wolves, Jimenez is the type of player that clearly likes to have that role as a centre forward. They're hard to find. There's not many around in the Premier League. You maybe look at Bamford, who's of that ilk that can lead the line, work incredibly hard, link the play. Jimenez is another, if he shows his fitness, which he's showing at the moment in pre-season, that can do that role. Do you look and think, well, maybe Danny Ings could be a great option as somebody that we know guarantees goals in the Premier League, but there's question marks maybe over his... You know, there will be options there, and Nuno might want to go somewhere different with the way he wants to play that doesn't involve Harry Kane. But the longer this goes on and the uglier it gets, it really, really doesn't help Nuno at the start of his reign at Tottenham.